Next piece, Inside Stories. The assassination of the Iranian nuclear physicist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh in November last year was a devastating blow for the Islamic Republic's sphere of atom science. And whilst no one has taken any responsibility for the crime, you all know who it is, it has been widely attributed to Israel in recent reports. A high-tech weapon that killed ranking Iranian nuclear scientists was brought into the country by MOSSAD, which is Tel Aviv's version of the CIA, according to not an Arab paper, the Jewish Chronicle, citing unnamed intelligence sources, and a newspaper confirmed that the hit was carried out by MOSSAD, which is Israel's feared intelligence service. According to the news outlet, a group of more than 20 spies of Israeli and Iranian origin smuggled the weapon with a total weight of 1 ton by small deconstructed pieces. Now, the setup for the killing reportedly took 8 months of painstaking surveillance on the target by intelligence officers, and the team built up an extremely detailed minute-by-minute plan. They stated for 8 months they breathed with the guy, woke up with him, slept with him, travelled with him. And earlier on Tuesday, Iranian Intelligence Minister Mahmoud Alavi said that the member of the Iranian armed forces has been implicated in the murder. Remember, it said 20 spies of Israeli and Iranian origin. Now, Fakhrizadeh was assassinated on the 27th of November 2020 in a Mazandaran province in northern Iran, and the car he was in came under fire from large caliber weapons that were controlled remotely. And Iran has repeatedly accused the Israeli intelligence group MOSSAD for the murder. And according to the Iranian Defense Ministry, Fakhrizadeh led Tehran's Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research, and the scientist was considered the father of Tehran's nuclear research and a key figure in Iran's nuclear studies. No surprise there. Now, what I suspect is it was not just his knowledge of nuclear power that they were interested in removing him for. That is the public scare version to label someone. But perhaps the clue was in the open sentence. It was a devastating blow for the Islamic Republic's sphere of atom science. And yes, that can be used for nuclear, but it can be used for an awful lot more. But what I found interesting is this was a Jewish paper that would document MOSSAD as a subsidiary of the CIA, which confirms our show's highlighting of the CIA, who have been implicated in thousands of crimes globally, and yet operate outside of the law under the banner of the National Security Act. The CIA were formed, remember, just after the Roswell and Aztec extraterrestrial crashes in 1947, formulated by the OSS. And perhaps there is a possible link revealed later on in the show. And it's nice to hear some Israelis now speaking more openly about the issues within their country. And I thought I would highlight that further and to a wider field with this piece. Rabbi Meir Kahane, Kahane, is considered something of a prophet by the Israeli right wing, and he openly advocated expelling all Palestinians from historic Palestine between the river and the sea, what he called the land of Israel. And he wrote in his 1981 manifesto, "The Jews and Arabs of the land of Israel ultimately cannot coexist. There is only one path for us to take, the immediate transfer of Arabs from Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel." Although liberal Israeli elites still view Kohen as a fanatic extremist, the reality is that Kohenism has today gone mainstream in Israel. And the latest sign of that came in the past week as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brokered a merger agreement between the two far-right parties in next month's general election to form the Religious Zionism List. And the former Transport Minister Bezalel Smotrich united with the fanatical Kahanist settler and lawyer Itamar Ben-Gvir of the Jewish Power Party, and in return Netanyahu offered Smotrich a vote-sharing agreement and chairs on the Judicial Appointments Committee. Netanyahu wanted to avoid the right-wing vote split being too much, which would have damaged his chances of forming a ruling coalition. Now, Smotrich recently called for Israel to wipe the Palestinian village of Khan al-Ahmar off the map in revenge for the International Criminal Court's ruling that it can investigate Israel for war crimes. So you get investigated for war crimes you committed, and then you wipe somebody else off the map and create more war crimes. Yet again, more child-level thinking. And the Israelis, like the CIA and other agencies, it seems, are beyond the law. And maybe that is why their religion is actually the law. And he said, "What matters is not what the Gentiles will say, but what will the Jews do?" Quoting an infamous phrase attributed to Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. Now, Ben-Gvir is such an extreme Kahanist that he openly displays a picture of the Israeli terrorist Baruch Goldstein in his home. Goldstein was a member of the Kahan's Jewish Defense League from New York, and in 1994 he massacred 29 Palestinian men and boys inside Hebron's Ibrahimi Mosque. In 2019 he said Gaza should be leveled and we should return to Gush Katif, the former settlement block Israel evacuated in 2005. Now, the liberal Israeli daily Haaretz responded to the news of Netanyahu's embrace of these radicals with an editorial this week dubbing the Prime Minister the Kahanist from Balfour Street, that being the location of Mr. Netanyahu's primary residence, and that is in recognition of the Rothschilds-led Lord Balfour in declaring a state for Israel back in 1919. And one of the newspaper's columnists wrote this week, "Netanyahu has become the godfather of Jewish supremacy." And it said, "It is of course true that the Kahanists are Jewish supremacists and that Netanyahu is a racist. But these editorials miss the wider point. As the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem put it recently, the state of Israel itself enforces a Jewish supremacist regime on the Palestinians as a whole, regardless of the government of the day. The whole state of Israel itself is a racist entity. Yet again, this is an Israeli paper, I might add. And it went on, it said, in fact, the worst and most notorious crimes of Israel were carried out by the Israeli Labour Party under one name or another. The ethnic cleansing of 1948, in which some 800,000 Palestinians were expelled by Zionist militias, and the 1967 invasion and the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. The only real disagreement that the Israeli Labour Party and the liberal Zionists Haaretz have with the Kohanes and the Ben Gurirs is that they are more crude and a frank expression of Zionism, they said. Both end up carrying out the same or very similar policies. The illusion of a party being different. All political parties are part of the same overarching group of psychopaths. And the sooner all peoples realise that, the better. Now, the Kahanists and the Nucl party are just more open about it. Kahan founded the Jewish Defense League in New York City in 1968. In 1971, the Jewish Defense League formed an alliance with a black rights group in what Cohen termed a turning point in black-Jewish relations. Israel Cohen was right all along, wasn't he? Now, Cohen was assassinated in a New York City hotel by allegedly an Egyptian-born US citizen in November of 1990. Cohen, born in and born to. Just saying. And all very Sabbatai Zebi to me. We'll be back shortly.